What the Cleveland Browns just did might be the move that changes everything. Because this wasn't just an upgrade, it was a complete reset. Last season, the offense felt broken. The pocket collapsed, plays didn't develop, and every snap looked rushed. It wasn't about talent, it was about survival. But now, that version of the Browns is gone. They didn't patch the problem, they erased it. New pieces across the offensive line, real protection, real structure, and for the first time in a while, it actually looks like this team has a plan. And right in the middle of it all is Shedeur Sanders. Because here's the truth, give a quarterback time and everything changes. The game slows down, decisions get sharper, confidence builds. And when that happens, defenses start breaking. But this isn't just about protection, it's about what comes with it. Better timing, stronger execution, an offense that actually functions the way it's supposed to. And now, there's growing talk that this entire setup is designed for one thing: to let Shedeur take control. So the real question is whether the Browns improved. It's whether the league is ready for what happens next. Last season wasn't just bad. It was chaos. Every time the Browns dropped back to pass, it felt like something was about to go wrong, and most of the time it did. The pocket didn't just collapse, it disappeared. Defenders weren't breaking through occasionally, they were living in the backfield. And that changes everything for a quarterback. Because when you don't trust your protection, you're not playing the game, you're surviving it. You're rushing reads, forcing throws, and reacting instead of controlling. Even the simplest plays start to feel complicated. And that's exactly what we saw. Routes didn't have time to develop. Receivers looked covered not because they couldn't get open, but because the ball had to come out too fast. The run game struggled to find rhythm. The entire offense felt out of sync, like nothing was ever fully under control. It wasn't just a weakness. It was the foundation of the problem. And the worst part, everyone knew it. Every defense knew they could pressure the Browns and get results. Blitz packages became automatic. Defensive coordinators didn't have to overthink anything, they attacked and it worked. That's when things start to spiral. Because once defenses realize they can dominate the line of scrimmage, they dictate everything. The quarterback speeds up. The offense becomes predictable, mistakes start stacking. And confidence, that disappears fast. Now imagine being a young quarterback in that situation. You're trying to prove yourself, trying to develop, trying to build rhythm, but every snap feels like a race against pressure. There's no time to settle in, no time to read the field, no time to grow. That's not development. That's damage control. And it showed. The offense didn't just struggle, it looked stuck, like it couldn't unlock its full potential no matter what adjustments were made. Because at the end of the day, none of it matters if the line can't hold. That was the reality. And that's why what the Browns just did matters so much. Because they didn't just recognize the problem. They went all in on fixing it. And then everything changed. Because the Browns didn't try to adjust the problem. They attacked it. This wasn't a small fix or a one-piece upgrade. This was a full teardown and rebuild of the offensive line top to bottom. New tackle, new guards, new center, multiple positions replaced with one clear goal in mind: stability. And that word matters. Because last season there was none. Now it looks intentional. Every move feels connected. Not random signings, not panicked decisions. This feels like a front office that sat down, looked at the biggest weakness on the team and said, "We're not letting this happen again." And when you look at it that way, it hits different. Because offensive line upgrades don't usually get headlines, they're not flashy, they don't go viral, but inside a building, that's everything. That's the difference between chaos and control. And here's what stands out the most: this wasn't about just adding talent. It was about adding the right pieces. Players who fit, players who can work together, players who bring consistency, not just potential, because one weak link on the line breaks everything. But when all five are connected, that's when an offense starts to breathe. And that's exactly what this rebuild is designed to do. Give the quarterback space. Give the offense time. Give the entire system a chance to actually function. Because think about it, when you replace one piece, you fix a problem. When you replace the entire structure, you change the identity. And that's what this feels like. This doesn't look like the Browns trying to survive another season. This looks like a team saying, "We're done with excuses." No more blaming the line, no more breakdowns every drive, no more games falling apart before they even start. This is a statement. And the timing makes it even more interesting. Because you don't make this kind of investment unless you believe in what's behind it. You don't rebuild the entire protection system unless you're confident in the quarterback you're protecting. That's where the connection starts to form. Because this move isn't just about fixing the past. It's about preparing for what's next. And if this line performs the way it's supposed to, everything we saw last season becomes irrelevant. Because now, for the first time in a long time, this offense actually has a foundation. This is where everything flips. Because people hear offensive line upgrade and think it's just about blocking. It's not. It's about control. When a quarterback has no protection, the game speeds up instantly. Reads get rushed, footwork breaks down, decisions become reactive instead of intentional. You're not playing your system, you're just trying to survive the next hit. That's what pressure does. It forces mistakes before the play even develops. But give that same quarterback time. Now it's a completely different game. Suddenly, he's not panicking, he's processing. He's scanning the field, reading coverage, moving through progressions. The game slows down, and when the game slows down for a quarterback, that's when defenses are in trouble. And that's exactly why this matters so much for Shedeur Sanders. Because his biggest strength isn't chaos, it's control. He's at his best when he can sit in the pocket, stay composed, and pick defenses apart. Not forcing throws, not guessing, just reading and reacting with precision. But that only works if the pocket holds. And now it might. Which means everything changes. Because once the quarterback is comfortable, the entire offense starts to unlock. Routes actually have time to develop. Receivers don't look covered anymore, they look open. Timing becomes sharper, throws become cleaner. Even simple plays start gaining more yardage because they're executed properly. And then there's the mental pressure on defenses. Last season, defensive coordinators had it easy. Blitz, apply pressure, and watch the play fall apart. It was predictable. Now, that strategy doesn't work the same way. If you blitz and don't get there, you're exposed. If you sit back, the quarterback has time to find the weak spot. Either way, you're reacting instead of controlling. And that's the shift. From offense reacting to offense dictating. And once that happens, it's a different level of football. Because now the quarterback isn't just playing the game. He's controlling it. And if Shedeur gets to that point, where he trusts the line, trusts the pocket, and plays with confidence, this offense doesn't just improve. It becomes dangerous. But the real question is, what happens when that control turns into momentum? Here's the part most people don't see coming. It's not just the quarterback that benefits. It's everyone. Because when the offensive line improves, the impact spreads across the entire offense, and it happens fast. Last season, receivers didn't look explosive, routes felt rushed, separation looked inconsistent, but here's the truth, most of that wasn't on them. It was timing. When a quarterback has no time, routes don't fully develop, plays get cut short, the ball comes out early, sometimes before the receiver even hits the brake. So from the outside, it looks like nobody's open. But in reality, the play never had a chance. Now change that. Give the quarterback an extra second, just one, and everything looks different. Routes are cleaner, separation is clearer, the ball arrives on time. Suddenly, average plays turn into big gains. And that's the hidden effect. Receivers don't magically get better overnight. They just finally get the opportunity to show what they can actually do. But it doesn't stop there. The run game benefits too. Because when defenses can't instantly blow up the pocket, they can't just sell out on one thing. They have to respect the pass, they have to stay disciplined, and that hesitation, that's all a running back needs. Gaps open wider, lanes develop cleaner, and now instead of fighting through traffic, runners are hitting space with momentum. That's how offenses become balanced. And balance is what makes everything unpredictable. Because now defenses are stuck. If they blitz, they risk getting exposed downfield. If they sit back, the run game punishes them if they try to guess. They guess wrong. And that's when things start to collapse. Because football at this level isn't just about talent, it's about pressure. Not physical pressure. Strategic pressure. Forcing defenses into bad decisions over and over again. And when an offense reaches that point, it becomes exhausting to defend. Every snap feels like a problem. Every formation looks like a threat. That's what the Browns are building. Not just protection, but pressure in reverse. Because now, instead of reacting to defenses, they're forcing defenses to react to them. And once that shift happens, that's when an offense stops looking predictable and starts looking dangerous. But here, where everything really changes. Confidence. And not the fake kind, not the say the right things in interviews type. Real confidence, the kind that shows up in how a quarterback moves, thinks, and plays. Because last season, that confidence couldn't exist. When you're constantly under pressure, constantly worried about getting hit, constantly second-guessing whether the pocket will even hold, you don't play free. You play careful, you hesitate, you rush. And hesitation at quarterback. That's deadly. But now that entire feeling starts to disappear. Because when protection improves, something clicks mentally. The quarterback stops thinking about survival and starts thinking about execution. Instead of how do I avoid pressure, it becomes how do I attack this defense? That's a completely different mindset. And there's growing talk that this is exactly what's happening with Shedeur. No more looking over his shoulder, no more wondering if one mistake changes everything, no more playing like he has to prove himself every single snap. Now, it's about control. Because when a team builds around you like this, upgrading the line, improving the system, aligning everything to support you, it sends a message. We trust you. And that matters more than people realize. Because once a quarterback feels trusted, the game opens up. Throws become more decisive, reads become sharper, the hesitation disappears, and instead of reacting, he starts dictating. That's when you see the real version of a player. Not the one dealing with chaos. The one in command. And here's the dangerous part. Confidence builds fast. One good drive turns into two. One big play turns into momentum. And before you know it, the entire offense starts feeding off that energy. Now receivers are playing faster. The line is playing stronger. The entire unit starts believing in what they're doing. That's how things snowball. And that's what makes this situation different from last year. Because last year, everything felt uncertain. Now, it feels clear. And when a quarterback steps into a season with clarity, support, and confidence all aligned, that's when the leap happens. Not just improvement. A leap. So now the question is whether Shedeur has the tools. It's what happens when he fully believes it. But here's the piece that quietly changes everything. The coach. Because talent matters, protection matters, confidence matters. But none of it fully comes together without the right system behind it. And that's where this situation starts to look very different. Because this isn't just any coaching setup. There's been a lot of talk, reports, conversations, even insiders hinting that this wasn't a random pairing, that the interest in Shedeur didn't just start recently. It's been there. It's been said that Todd Monken has believed in him for a long time, going back to earlier opportunities, earlier systems, earlier moments where paths almost crossed. This isn't new. This is familiarity. And that matters more than people think. Because when a coach already understands a quarterback, how he plays, how he processes, what he does best, they don't waste time trying to force him into a system that doesn't fit. They build around him. And that's exactly what this feels like. Not a figure-it-out-as-we-go situation. A plan. Because you don't bring in a coach like this, rebuild the offensive line, and restructure the offense unless everything is aligned. Unless everyone is moving in the same direction. In that direction, it's clear. Maximize the quarterback. Put him in positions where he's comfortable, spread the field, create options, let him operate instead of restricting him. That's a quarterback-friendly system. And for a young player, that's everything. Because the wrong system can slow development, limit creativity, force mistakes, but the right system. It unlocks everything. And here, where it gets even more interesting. There's growing buzz that this setup is designed specifically to let Shedeur play fast, play free, and play confident, not overthinking, not hesitating. Just reacting. And when a quarterback reaches that point, the game changes. Because now it's not about learning the system. It's about mastering it. And when you combine that with everything else, the improved protection, the rising confidence, the weapons being added, it starts to feel less like a rebuild, and more like a setup. A setup where the coach believes in the quarterback. The system supports the quarterback. And the entire offense is built to elevate the quarterback. And when all of that aligns, that's when things stop being potential and start becoming real. And this is where things take a turn nobody expected. Because it's not just fans talking anymore. It's the critics. The same voices that usually question everything, breaking down every flaw, pointing out every weakness, finding reasons to doubt, are starting to say something very different. They're agreeing. Now, to be fair, not everyone has completely flipped. There's still debate, still hesitation, still people waiting to see how it plays out, but there's been a noticeable shift in tone. Less doubt. More acknowledgement. And that matters. Because when people who don't usually buy in start recognizing what's happening, it means something real is forming. It means this isn't just hype or excitement, it's something that's starting to make sense from every angle. There's been a lot of buzz around analysts who normally stay critical, suddenly pointing out the same thing. This setup works. No dramatic breakdowns, no tearing it apart, just a clear understanding that the Browns have finally done what they needed to do, build around the quarterback the right way. And that's a big deal. Because criticism usually fades last. Fans might get excited early, teams might push narratives, but critics, they wait, they look for cracks, they challenge everything. So when that resistance starts to soften, that's when you know something is shifting. And it's not just about one opinion. It's the pattern. More voices saying the same thing, more conversations leaning in the same direction, more people acknowledging that this situation is different from what we've seen before. And here's the key part. It's not based on promises. It's based on what's actually been done. The offensive line rebuild, the coaching alignment, the structure of the offense, the direction of the team, it all adds up to something that's hard to ignore. Even if you want to doubt it. And that's why this moment feels different. Because when critics stop pushing back and start nodding along, that's not noise. That's validation. Now, does that guarantee success? No. But it changes the conversation. Because now, instead of asking, is this going to fail? People are starting to ask, what happens if this actually works? And that's a completely different level of attention. Because once the narrative shifts like that, it doesn't go back easily. But here, where this goes from interesting to serious. Because this isn't just about fixing an offensive line or helping a quarterback. This is about what the Browns are building. And when you zoom out, you start to see it. Because they're not just upgrading pieces, they're stacking advantages. You've got protection being handled, the biggest weakness from last season addressed, but they didn't stop there, they still have premium draft capital sitting on the table. Pick number 6. Pick number 24. Pick number 39. That's not just flexibility, that's power. Because now they can do whatever they want. They can go get a top-tier left tackle and completely lock down the line. They can add a dynamic receiver who changes how defenses play them. They can even move around the draft board if they see someone they really want. And that's what makes this dangerous. Because this isn't a team trying to stay competitive. This is a team preparing to level up fast. There's already buzz, rumors, discussions, speculation that they could target explosive playmakers, receivers who stretch the field, guys who don't just run routes but actually create separation and force defenses to adjust. And if that happens, everything multiplies. Because now you're not just dealing with protection, you're dealing with weapons. Multiple threats, different layers, speed on the outside, options everywhere. And that's where defenses start to lose control. Because you can't stop everything. You double one receiver, another one steps up. You load the box, the passing game punishes you. You play it safe, the offense takes what you give them all day. It becomes a constant guessing game. And that's exactly what elite offenses do. They don't just beat you, they stress you. Every play feels like a problem, every formation forces a decision, and sooner or later defenses make mistakes. That's the bigger picture. Because now, it's not just about whether Shedeur has time. It's about what happens when he has time and options. Because that combination, that's where things get explosive. And the scariest part, they're not done yet. Because with the assets they still have, the flexibility they've built, and the direction they're moving in, this could just be the beginning of something much bigger. So when you step back and look at everything, it doesn't feel like a normal rebuild anymore. It feels like a statement. Because the Browns didn't just fix a problem, they changed the entire direction of their offense. They took the biggest weakness on the team, tore it down, and replaced it with something that actually makes sense. Protection addressed. System aligned. Confidence growing. And right at the center of it all is Shedeur Sanders. But here's what really makes this moment different. It's not just about what they've done, it's about what it means. Because for the first time, this doesn't look like a team trying to figure things out. It looks like a team that already has. Everything connects, the offensive line gives stability, the system gives structure, the coaching gives direction, the weapons give options. It's all pointing the same way. And when that happens, that's when things stop being potential and start becoming real. Now, to be clear, none of this guarantees anything. There's still games to be played, there's still pressure, there's still moments that will decide everything. But the setup is there. And that's what changes the conversation. Because last season, every discussion about the Browns started with problems. What's wrong, what's missing, what's not working. Now, that conversation is gone. Now it's about expectations. And expectations come with pressure. Because when a team builds like this, when they invest like this, align like this, and position a quarterback like this, there are no more excuses. None. So now the question shifts completely. It's no longer can they improve. That part is already in motion. The real question is, what happens when it all clicks? Because if Shedeur steps into this system, trusts the protection, uses the weapons, and plays with confidence, this offense doesn't just get better. It becomes something teams have to prepare for all week and still struggle to stop. And that's when everything changes. Because the Browns aren't trying to compete anymore. They're trying to take over. So now it all comes down to this. Are we watching a rebuild? Or are we watching the beginning of something much bigger?